Well, Democrats have been completely rejected across the board. Absolutely rejected over the past 4 or 5 months. We got a lot to dig in today about this complete rejection by the American people of Democrats. But before we get started, if you're new here, go down below, drop a like, follow our channel, leave any thoughts that you have in the comments. It really helps us reach more and more people to see these videos here. So let's get into it. So not only have the Democrats really been completely rejected by the American people in the 2024 election, a recent poll out of Quinnipiac University is just absolutely devastating for the Democrats. There's no other way you can spin this here. Let's take a look here. Let's see. Democrat and Republican parties. Let's see if I can make this maybe not. Voters' view of the Democrat Party and Republican Party set new records since the Quinnipiac University poll began asking voters about the parties in November of 2008. In today's poll, 31%, hear that, 31% of voters have a favorable opinion of the Democrat Party. You see how it says Democratic? No, Democrat Party. While only 57% have now 57% have an unfavorable opinion of the Democrat Party. This is the highest percentage of voters that have an unfavorable opinion of the Democrats since the start of the Quinnipiac poll back in 2008. Now, on the flip side, for the GOP, 43% of voters have a favorable opinion of the Republican Party, while 45% have an unfavorable opinion. This is the highest percentage of voters that have a favorable opinion of the Republican Party since the Quinnipiac University poll began asking this question. This makes the biggest favorability advantage for the Republican Party, 43%, has ever held over the Democrat Party, 31%. Wow, only 31. It's like they are that far underwater. 57% of voters have an unfavorable opinion of Democrats, while only 45% of voters have an unfavorable view of the Republican Party. It's like if you think that things haven't been bad enough for the Democrats recently, it's like this just doubles down on that fact. And it's just another point to look at that shows that how out of step the Democrat Party is with the average American. It's true, they are just totally out of step with average Americans, focusing more on transgender, LGBTQ, climate change, these issues that aren't even top contenders for most average Americans. Emphasis, most average Americans. And since this last election, and the presidential election in November of last year, they really just haven't shown any signs of changing the priorities or the tactics that they've used over the past decade that not only allowed Donald Trump to come into power after 8 years of Obama, it allowed Trump to return to power. And think of this, just take a couple steps back here. The way the Democrats framed this was that Trump is a convicted felon, that he is an insurrectionist, that he is a rapist. This is how the Democrats framed him. Yet somehow, he was able to win 77 million votes in the 2024 election. And yet, think of that. You'd think if you were to label someone a felon, a convicted rapist, which now George Stephanopoulos had to pay the ultimate price for the slip up of a, quote, convicted rapist. He was convicted of sexual, I believe it was misconduct, is what he was convicted of in a civil court, of course. But Democrats have not done anything to show that they are changing their priorities moving forward. You can look at recent DNC leadership elections. Ken Martin, the longtime head of the Minnesota Democrat Party. It's called the Democratic Farmer Labor in Minnesota. But he's the new chairman of the DNC, was recently elected by a 25-point margin over his next opponent, who was Ben Winkler. He's the head of the Wisconsin Democrat Party. But Ken, the new DNC chairman, thinks that Democrats only have a messaging problem and that misinformation is to blame for this. So it has nothing to do with the fact that Democrats are pushing the wrong message. It just has to do with that the messaging of those priorities and those policies is wrong. and that misinformation is to blame for this. He also doubled down in his, during the election for the DNC chairman, that he believes that racism and misogyny were the key factors in Kamala Harris's loss to Donald Trump in November. Let's take a look at that here. Let's see.
I'm going to, in this round, so I'm going to, I have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay.
It's like, look at this buffoon. Oh, raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand, you buffoon. What a nut job. And this is the guy that we have who's going to be leading the DNC, which, fine by me. I have zero hope that the Democrats will ever win an election ever again, to be 100% honest with you, but he truly believes that racism and misogyny, it doesn't have to do with the fact that, your policies were terrible. You had complete control of the government for 2 years, and you held the Senate and the executive branch for 4 years, and the American voter rejected you. Like, you were so bad that even if you labeled your opponent as a felon, a convicted rapist, and an insurrectionist, that's still, you guys were that bad that they still voted for Trump. That's how bad the Democrats are. It's like, I don't feel like they understand the grasp or the weight of that situation where this is what you laid out as who your opponent was, and the American people completely rejected it. It's like, I just don't think they feel the full weight of how badly they were rejected in this last election. And the other funny thing that just shows the Democrats are willing to double down on their DEI policies, their woke gender ideology, was that the DNC implemented, quote, gender quotas for the vice chair position to include, quote, non-binary people. Let's take a look at this. This is the outgoing DNC chairman, Jamie Harrison, talking about the vice chair elections. I'll let you go ahead and listen.
Rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules. To do this, our process will be slightly different than the one outlined to you earlier this week, but I hope you will see that in practice it is simple and transparent. The order of balloting is designed to ensure equal access to the ballot, regardless of gender identity. As we must elect a candidate...
I can't even listen to this garbage anymore. It's like, it is so bad. If you want to go watch it, just look up DNC elections in Twitter or on YouTube, and you can find you can see the whole thing, but you can find this whole video here. It is just absolutely disgusting. Yeah, we're going to set quotas that we need to have a non-binary person, we need to have a male, a female, and a non-binary, if you didn't know, hint, hint, little secret, there's only 2 genders. I don't know if anybody's ever told these people this before, but there are only 2 genders. But, we'll let them keep just running right into the brick wall that they've ran into in the most recent election. But, it's real clear. Democrats have not learned a single thing from over the past few months about the election, and they are willing to double down on these really radical ideas and ideologies that Americans completely rejected. In a recent New York Times report that they were reporting on a poll that was conducted, I believe it was between, I think the New York Times were the ones who, a poll from the New York Times conducted between January 2nd and January 10th here. The They asked people to identify what are their top priorities. What are the top priorities of the Democrat Party? So all of the people in the poll were asked, what do you think, as an outsider or as a Democrat? There were about 2,100 people that were polled in this poll. What do you think the top priorities are for the Democrat Party? And from the respondents, they said abortion, LGBTQ plus divided sign, minus sign, whatever, rights, and climate change. Those were what the American people thought the Democrats' top priorities were. When those same voters were asked what were their top priorities, it's as simple as day. And it spells out exactly why Democrats lost this election. The top priorities of those same people who said that Democrats' top priorities were abortion, LGBTQ rights, and climate change, they said that their top priorities were the economy, inflation, healthcare, and immigration. Like, how much more clear do we need to spell, do Americans need to spell this out for the Democrats? Like, the writing, is literally on the wall. Literally, the writing is on the wall. But whatever. It's they're just going to keep doing their thing. Now, although the Americans people in this poll did find that President Trump's leadership was, they were pretty split on it, about 50-50. There's more like 45-45. The poll found that Americans were split on President Trump's leadership so far. But the issue for Democrats is that, yes, Americans are split on Trump, but they don't see a great alternative in the Democrat Party. They just don't. Americans do not see the Democrats as a serious alternative to the Republican Party, even people who are anti-Trump. And there's always that sneaky third candidate in the race called the couch. The Democrats, the Republicans, yeah, you've got independents and libertarian and the weed party, all that fun stuff. But ultimately, you aren't fighting against those candidates. You're fighting against the couch. People who just choose not to vote. Because ultimately, the GOP's priorities are much more in line with the issues that matter to the people being polled. When we talked about earlier, what were the top priorities of the people who were polled? The economy, inflation, healthcare, and immigration. Those same people who said that those were their top priorities found that the GOP's priorities were much more in line with the issues that matter to them. They said the top three for the GOP priorities that they see are immigration, the economy, inflation, and taxes. It's this is so lopsided. The Democrats, abortion, LGBTQ, climate change. Republicans, immigration, economy, inflation, taxes. What do the American people want? Inflation, economy, healthcare, immigration. It really is as simple as this, but the Democrats are going to continue to plow down this path where they are beholden to the radical left wing of their party who wants to double down on DEI. The DEI was rejected this election. So what do? Let's double down on DEI. Let's make sure we have a spot for a non-binary person in our vice chair elections. Now, a lot's going to depend on, we talk about the Democrats being a alternative to the Republican Party and Trump. Yes, right now that's how people feel. They feel Democrats are not a reliable alternative to Trump. But a lot of that is going to depend on how well President Trump is going to be able to follow through on his campaign promises and how it's received by the American electorate. Because ultimately, Americans voted for Trump to lower cost for the American people, lower taxes, unleash energy independence, and bring some sanity back to the White House after 4 years with a president who, for a lack of better words, was in an obvious mental decline. Obvious mental decline. And we want to talk about scandals. Look at the mainstream media, the legacy media, covering up the obvious mental decline of the 46th president of the United States. And it was only when he completely humiliated the legacy media on the debate stage in June against President Trump was that they decided to dump him and throw their weight behind Kamala Harris. But like I said, a lot's going to depend on how Trump is going to follow through on this. Is he going to be able to bring some sanity back to the White House? And so far, I'd say he is. We're eliminating DEI. We've implemented the Department of Government Efficiency, aimed to reduce $1 trillion in wasteful government spending every year. You know, we actually have a president who, you know, when Trump gets off a plane, when he came back from his Palm Beach vacation or house in Palm Beach, Florida, he spoke on the tarmac when he got back to Washington. He spoke for longer on the tarmac after he got off the plane than Biden probably ever did his entire presidency. Obviously a little satire there, but it's like there really is a point. It's like I feel like Trump had more to say in his first couple days in office than Biden had to say his entire time he was in office. And that is just a sad reality. But we're going to see how this all plays out with Trump. He's made a lot of bold moves at this point. Repealing DEI throughout the federal government, trying to figure out how they can cut federal funding for DEI initiatives that are in the education system. He's putting tariffs on Mexico, Canada, China, the EU. He's already been able to get Mexico to come to the negotiating table with the tariffs. We'll see how it plays out with Canada, China, and the European Union as far as putting tariffs on them goes and bringing them to the negotiation table, using it really as a formal, it's a piece of leverage that Trump has. We're going to see how, what does that translate into the American people? And is he going to be able to get his tax bill passed? Is he going to be able to really renew the Trump tax cuts from 2017? And to be honest, he needs to get that done in the next couple months, because if we want to see true economic impacts of the tax cuts by the 2026 midterm election, we got to have this done by, at the latest, by like the 4th of July. That gives 18 months for this bill to kickstart and really to see what it can do for the American economy. We're going to see how it all plays out. But that's going to be it for today, folks. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you like this video, hit that like button down below. And let me know down in the comments, what do you think about the Democrat Party? Do you feel that the Democratic Party doesn't share the priorities of the average American? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below, and have a great rest of your day.